Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bayou Bengals Insider. I'm Jimmy Frederick. Along with me, recruiting guru and publisher of BayouBengalsInsider.com, Derek Ponamsky. And Derek, last week we were wondering, is he staying? Is he going? We now know that Les Miles will be the head coach at LSU for at least the next 7 years. And, if you were a part of BayouBengalsInsider.com or BBISports.com, well, you had all the inside scoop. Hence the name Inside.
That's exactly right. When you look at what our subscribers were able to get, we were ahead of this the whole while. Our sources and our staff did a great job with this. And as it pertains to the LSU fan base right now, this is good news with Les Miles staying. It provides stability in the program, and from a recruiting perspective, he's one of the best in the nation, and you locked him up for a long-term deal. And we are talking about recruiting here, and I guess the next speculation is who is going to be the offensive coordinator. Now, this show is not about speculating on that, but it is important to recruiting. And this week, we're talking about wide receivers and special teams. So this could be big. When you're looking at what LSU's trying to accomplish on offense, the last 2 years have been really, really down years. With Zach Mettenberger coming in, some good offensive linemen coming in, this could be a chance for LSU to reestablish the running game, get back to a power running game. And certainly Les Miles is going to want to find somebody who matches up with his personality, because next year there's a chance for greatness. This is not something where you want to spend 2 or 3 years building something. You want to go right into it.
We've got a lot more coming up on Bayou Bengals Insider back after this. Welcome back to Bayou Bengals Insider. I'm Jimmy Frederick. Along with me, the publisher of Bayou Bengals Insider and recruiting guru, Derek Ponamsky. It is time, we've talked about offensive linemen, we've talked about defensive linemen, we've talked about a lot of the positions that we've been looking at, but now it's time to look at wide receivers. And this is a very, very important position when you think about the possibilities of Zach Mettenberger coming in next year and the quarterback possibilities that we have.
This receiver class for LSU has as much potential as any class that LSU's ever brought in receiving-wise. Certainly there's one headliner in Jarvis Landry, but there's a couple other guys that with some time and some grooming could be phenomenal SEC players.
All right, what is Billy Gonzalez as the wide receivers coach looking for when he finds these guys? We've got 4 solid guys coming in.
Well, the first thing you're looking for is looking for athletes. In the SEC, you need to be able to take the ball and make something happen after you catch it. Now, that brings us to the other thing. You've got to be able to catch the football. This is not a situation where they're trying to bring guys in and hoping and praying that they develop the skills as a pass catcher. They want to make sure that these guys can go in there. And that's why when you look at what the 4 guys that LSU has, there's a couple of really strong ball, guys catching the ball, and that's the main thing. LSU has to be more consistent in catching the football.
Well, and with the 2 quarterbacks, and again, we're going to get into quarterbacks next week much more specifically, but Jordan Jefferson throws a type of ball Mettenberger throws a type of ball. How can they gauge right now if these receivers, and we're talking about Landry, Beckham, Lewis, and Paul Turner, that they're going to be able to handle these balls?
Well, when in the summertime when these guys came in for camp, they put them out there on the same field and watched how they were in making sure they can catch the ball. Now, Jarvis Landry is one of the best. He has phenomenal hands. It's unbelievable. Odell Beckham has been a kind of a late bloomer and a guy who's developed a better ball catching ability. Alonzo Lewis, he may grow into a tight end. And then Paul Turner is a guy that when you look at everything that he has, phenomenal athlete, has played quarterback, you want to see how he's going to be as a receiver on the next level.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about these guys specifically. We've kind of mentioned them briefly. Let's start with Jarvis Landry from Letcher High School. He's 5'11", 190 pounds, runs great routes.
He's not big. He's not fast. He's not he's not particularly great at anything except being a football player.
Right.
He catches the ball phenomenally. He is physical. He at the Under Armour All-American game, Deion Sanders pulled him to the side and said he was the best pure receiver he's seen since Jerry Rice. That's a humongous compliment. You're looking at a guy that his senior year, his statistics didn't match up. He lost his quarterback, Gavin Webster. They had some issues getting him the ball. He is probably the most prepared to play in the SEC wide receiver that's come through the state of Louisiana in the last 10 years.
Now, we turn our attention to Odell Beckham, who's got a great lineage. I mean, his dad played at LSU. His mom was a superstar at LSU. Tell me about Odell.
Odell Beckham, the best way to describe him is he's a late bloomer. He was a guy that as a sophomore was under 5'5". He continued to grow as a junior, was a guy who really kind of took the next step to being an elite level prospect, and as a senior, phenomenal year. Nelson Stewart asked him to do an awful lot of things, and he went out there and got it done. He's a guy that could play cornerback or safety, but he's a guy that I think with the ball in his hands is a difference maker. Long strider, long arms, big hands. If you put him in space, he's going to make people miss, and he could take it to the house every time he catches the ball.
Those two guys have been basically the same size, 5'11", 190. Next, we look at Alonzo Lewis. You said he could become a tight end, but he's 6'3", 195 pounds. You got to expect they're going to put 20 or 30 pounds on him.
Right now, Alonzo Lewis is a guy that he could grow into a tight end position similar to what D'Angelo Peterson did.
Right.
He's a guy that could play outside linebacker. He's a guy that, right now could be a safety. It just remains to be seen what LSU's looking to do with him. He didn't have any production in high school playing in the offense that Rick Gailey ran at St. James. They didn't really throw the ball very much. So this is a situation where it's all based on potential. In the River Parish All-Star game, he had 2 interceptions, so he shows good ability with the ball. And I think that he's a guy that, with a little bit more coaching, and obviously he's going to grow a little bit more,
right.
He could play tight end, receiver, anywhere on the defense. A great prospect with a lot of potential in different ways.
Paul Turner, listed as an athlete, 5'11", 185 pounds, out of West Monroe. You know what they do up in West Monroe. So this guy really has, he could just do about anything.
Not only can he do a lot of things, he is a guy that does that with the ball in his hands is a phenomenal playmaker. The issues with Turner, and I think why he's going to redshirt, is he hasn't played receiver before. He's played quarterback for Don Shaw, so he's going to have a little bit of an adjustment period there. But that could benefit him. If he takes some time, physically he's going to be able to play in the SEC level. He's quick, he's got good speed, but he's really quick, elusive with the ball in his hands, and he's a guy that with 2 or 3 years of grooming and a little bit more time where he doesn't have the pressure to produce right away, he could be the kind of athlete that LSU's has been hoping that Russell Shepard would have been for the last 2 years.
Let me tell you something, and looking at all these guys, the one thing that impresses me is that Billy Gonzalez is not going to have to worry about teaching these guys how to run routes, know where to be, know how to get open, and catch the ball in traffic, and that's something that's exciting. We're going to come back. When we come back, we'll have a lot more on Bayou Bengal Insider. Don't go anywhere, folks.
Welcome back to Bayou Bengals Insider. Ordinarily in this spot we would have a Q&A with the wide receiver. We couldn't pass up the opportunity to sit down with Trey Turner and talk with him about how his recruiting process has gone down and how he's coming along with the shoulder injury. Jimmy Frederick had an opportunity to sit down with the LSU commit, Trey Turner.
Thanks a lot, Derek. We appreciate it. Here we are at Velocity Sports Performance in New Orleans. We appreciate them allowing us to use this facility. And we are sitting with a man among boys, well, at least a boy, you know what I mean, a giant here in Trey Turner. And Trey, thanks so much for being with us. A commitment to LSU as an offensive guard from St. Aug. And, we talked with Jonah Austin a little bit. And first of all, I wanted to ask you a little bit about how cool it is, two of the biggest offensive linemen for LSU coming in from the same school. That's got to be neat.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. First off, because of the chemistry we have with each other and, the potential that we have, of playing on the same side. So first off, we already have chemistry, so that's one thing that we just had to progress more with, and it's already there. So we just had to keep that going. And then, that's my brother. He gonna push me, I'm gonna push him.
I know it. I know it. Well, we can't go too far without saying you had a little shoulder surgery. More of a thing to go ahead and knock it out, right? Before it got worse. Right.
Actually, my anterior labrum was tore from the bone. So what they did was stitch it back down to the bone. And right now I'm just in the healing process. Started physical therapy, getting my range of motion back. Everything's going fine.
Don't expect any problems there.
No problems.
We've been talking to everybody about the fact that this recruiting class called themselves the fam.
Right.
And as a layperson, a person that's not involved in recruiting all the time, it's pretty cool to see a group of guys come together for one single purpose,
Yeah, I mean, we are brothers. We all pretty much from the same place, go through the same things, have the same problems. And pretty much what the fam is somebody I could call upon if I'm having a problem with maybe, a coach calling me and, maybe taking visits and stuff, maybe talk you out of it. And just overall just being there for you, making sure everything cool, everybody's solid.
So you're recruiting for LSU as a recruit.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, I know you worked very hard to get this scholarship. It's something that wasn't just, you didn't have it when you were a freshman or something.
Right.
You worked every single day to make sure you had this.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that process and how some of the things that you went through over the course of your high school career to make sure that you're here.
From things like such as me running, losing some weight, getting stronger, all kind of things that we're going through to get this off. I mean, working hard work, and I mean, I'm a testament to it. It pays off. I mean, you just have to keep going and going. I just strive for what I want, and now I have it, so I'm taking advantage of it.
Have you thought about that first time? It's September 7th or whatever it is, and you're walking through Tiger Stadium and touching it, and what's it going to feel like? What do you think it's going to feel like?
I have no clue. I have no clue. I can't even give you an explanation for that. I have no clue.
You always played in front of big crowds at St. Aug, but I'm not sure you played in front of 93,000.
No, I don't. I'm ready for it, but I don't know how I'm going to take to it.
How about this offseason now? You know where you're headed. You know what you're doing. What's the focus for you before you get to LSU?
One of the big things I'm focused on is cardio work. That's my first priority, cardio, and then getting stronger. That's on everybody's list, but cardio work is a pretty big thing for me right now, and flexibility. And
that is something that obviously you've been working on a lot. But will you be able to do that at St. Aug? Will you?
I'll probably train. Don't know specifically where, but I'm training. Right now I'm just, with my shoulder, I'm just riding a bike every day and making sure, like I said, my cardio work.
Well, I know academics has been important to you. You've done a great job there. Any thoughts on what you might want to major in when you get to the Tigers?
Yeah, I have pretty much business management is what I was thinking of, but I'm not sure just yet.
Well, of course, it'll be after the NFL.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you stopping by with us. This has been a tremendous thing to see you develop over the last few years at St. Aug, and we just can't wait to see you in purple and gold on Saturday nights and Saturday afternoon in Tiger Stadium.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Trey Turner, everybody, we certainly appreciate him stopping by with us. A commitment to 2011 for the LSU Fighting Tigers. It's going to be a great class. We've got a lot of wonderful years ahead for the Tigers. We'll take a break. We'll come back with more on Bayou Bengals Insider right after this. Welcome back to Bayou Bengal Insider. You know, Les Miles has given us such access to his coaching staff. We've already talked with Brick Haley last week. We've also talked with Frank Wilson the week before. Well, we get to continue that conversation as Derek sits down with Frank Wilson, talking about the recruiting process and some of the things he's looking for.
I'd like to continue talking with Coach Frank Wilson. When we get into the point in time in the back end of the recruiting year, people are always wondering why a certain guy doesn't get an offer or something like, and all of the, obviously you have the restraints in terms of scholarship limitations. You have, certainly need position-wise. When you are in the evaluation process, how important is production versus potential when you guys are trying to establish, where guys are on your board?
I think there's great merit in both of them. From our perspective, the first part of it is the identification part of it, and we do so from a grassroots, going out to every school, making sure there's no stone unturned, identifying those players, whether it be someone as simple as all district, all metro, all state. And then we use our other resources with you guys, with ESPN, with Scout, with Rivals. Certainly those sources don't tell us this is who you need to recruit, but we do use them as a resource. Once that part of it is done and we've identified players, we go out and see them. We watch them in spring ball going into their junior year, at the latest going into their junior or senior year. Then we get them here in camp, and there's two parts to it. There may be a young man who come to camp and does extremely well, but you look at his production and it's not very good. There's two ways you can look at it. You can look at what he's being coached at his particular school, and the skill level of the opposition that he's going against, and the expectations of his coaches, and wonder, is he doing that because that's all that's expected of him, or is he being the best player that he can be? If he's not being the best player that he can be, we just had him in camp and we took him through drill-specific stuff for his position, and we saw him change direction, jump, catch, show speed, show all of the things that we look for at that position. And based on that, we may deem it, he has an upside. There's somebody that we can get going. The flip side of that is you may have that same kid who tests well but doesn't play well in pads. You have to be able to transition it from a camp setting to a game setting. And we want football players. We want gamers. When the lights come on, guys who can play. So somewhere in between, we try to find that balance. That's where it gets tricky because it's not always clear cut, and there's no exact science to it, especially when you talk about the bigger guys, the offensive linemen, who are sometimes their body is bigger than and their athletic ability hasn't caught up with it. And they may look a little goofy or a little clumsy at times, but once they grow into it or mature into their body size, they blossom. There may be a young man who peaks early, And when you get him, he's maxed out. That's all that he can be. So it's intense study as we watch that prospect, that, you know, the size, the speed, the weight, you know, all of those things are variables that we use. But the evaluation part starts from as early as his sophomore, freshman year, getting that kid to camp, and then continually evaluating him throughout the process of his high school career, tied in with assessment of the character, of the grades, of the work ethic, all of those things, because great athletes at times, or guys with athletic ability, come a dime a dozen. But the thing that you can't measure and you can't always see is a guy who has a tremendous heart and a tremendous work ethic and a will and a desire to will himself to be a great player. And when you see those things in a young man, the only way you see that is to get him in camp. So when we get him in camp and we see that, all right, there's a drive inside this young man, there's a desire inside him, he's different, he's special. We have one of them here right now, 14, who has a desire and a drive inside of him that makes his size uncomparable. When you look at the measurables of his height and his weight, it's not prototypical, but you can't measure what's inside of him. And so, you know, you have cases where you gotta take a chance, and we base that on what we, you know, get from that young man throughout the years recruiting him.
And that's, you know, one of the bigger things in covering recruiting is when I get access to these guys and you find out who has the attitude, who's not some of these guys, you learn pretty quickly. Like you say, athletes, you can find them. But, you know, some of your leadership guys, your high character guys, your attitude guys, they're not just good football players. They're good people on the streets as well. And you can kind of see the correlation between those guys being successful.
It's a direct correlation, you know, because it's a tremendous sacrifice. You think about what we're doing now. We're preparing for a bowl game, and those guys, the day after Christmas, headed back. 2 days after Christmas, they're here. They're working. It's a tremendous sacrifice that most guys or kids their age don't make. So for them to give all of that up, they got to have a desire, a will, a love, a passion to want to play the game.
Well, Coach, thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
We'll be back with more Bayou Bengals Insider right after this.
Welcome back to Bayou Bengals Insider. I'm Jimmy Frederick. Along with me, Derek Ponamsky. We've talked about the wide receivers. Great interview with Trey Turner, and of course, more insight from Frank Wilson. And it's always a pleasure to sit down with him and really pick his brain about what they're looking for when they're talking about recruiting.
When you look at the layers that the coaching staff goes through in the process and getting a little glimpse into what they think, that's certainly something that really helps, you know, kind of shed a light on why it is that they pick certain guys over other guys.
All right. We've got to talk about special teams. And when you talk about special teams, you talk about Josh Jasper. He's leaving. Everybody will say arguably the best kicker in the country, by far the best kicker in the country. When you look at field goals, punting, pooching. It's just absolutely incredible.
Yards per carry.
Yards per carry. And able to catch bounce passes.
There's no doubt.
But we are bringing in a very good kicker in James Hairston from Dallas, Texas. Tell us about him.
Well, Hairston's a big guy. He's over 6 foot tall. When you look at what LSU's done in the last 2 years, losing Derek Helton as a punter and bringing in Brad Wing, losing Josh Jasper, bringing in James Hairston. I like the name Derek.
No, I understand.
You can see what's on the top of my head. But in bringing in Hairston, what they've been able to do is they've been able to find guys that are athletic guys. That certainly if you go online and you go to our site and you look at the highlight films that we have of Hairston, he's a guy that takes great pride in his onside kicking ability and some of the other things that LSU has used those things to become multiple in the special teams thing, and that's something that Joe Robinson and his staff want to make sure that they have guys who come in and can do multiple things.
And to me, that's interesting. I always tend to think about place kicking. I think about field goals and extra points. But as important, if not more important, is your kickoffs, those intangible things that you can do with the football when you're trying to do onside kicks. All the things that a kicker does really kind of runs under the radar a little bit to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation when you look at, a lot of guys in high school can kick the ball into the end zone.
Right.
But what LSU is looking for is they want to make sure that a guy has the distance on that, but also the hang time. Because in a situation where if you just kick it 7 yards deep and it's on a line, then your coverage teams aren't able to get down close enough, and those guys can get back to the 30, 35-yard line. They want to make sure that they have it on both sides where they can play. Look, this team, what they've tried to do on defense is play keep away and on offense and make sure the defense can hold the other team down. And certainly if another team's starting the ball at the 35-yard line, then one play and they're in field goal range.
Yeah, we talked about kickers, and we don't want to dwell too much on anything else, but the special teams part of this, we're losing Patrick Peterson. We're going to have to find some guys to return the football, but also you got some guys that really have to be good blockers. They have to be good gunners. We got a lot of things that goes into special teams.
When you look at when you're bringing in a class of 20-plus guys, you need guys that are going to contribute on punt team, on punt return, kickoff. You need guys that could do multiple things because you need value out of each of these guys, and if you've got a couple of guys that are hot, they're able to return the ball. Certainly in this class, you got guys like Paul Turner, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, guys that can be returners and help out with that. But you also need to make sure that you've got guys that can cover kicks. You want to make sure that a guy like Trevon Randall and a guy like Kenny Hilliard can get on the field while they're still competing for a starting spot to go out there and produce.
Well, we've got just 2 weeks left till signing day, my friend. I mean, it's hard to believe it's gone this fast. You can see all the interviews and segments of the show on YouTube. Check us out there. We will be back with more of Bayou Bengals Insider next week. Have a great day, everybody.